All right, this year, Homework Hotline has teamed up with the Golisano Foundation to bring you a series called Move to Include. Tonight we have Rachel Wyman is here to talk to us about Spread the Word to End the Word. Hi, Rachel. How are you?
Hi, Rachel.
Thanks for coming on.
Yep, thanks.
So what is this Spread the Word, End the Word thing that you're talking about?
Well, the Spread the Word to End the Word campaign is an effort with the Special Olympics and Best Buddies, and it includes supporters like the Golisano Foundation, and it's to inspire respect and acceptance of people who have intellectual and developmental disabilities. The campaign was started by a group of students, and it's really to engage schools, communities, and organizations to really use people first, accepting language to help support people who have intellectual and developmental disabilities.
So what is the R word?
The R word, for those of you who don't know, is the word retard or the use of the word retarded.
Ah, okay.
How long has this program been going on?
It started in 2009, and the campaign runs a pledge the first Wednesday of every March.
And why is it that this day is so important, and what is the pledge that we should be looking at?
So the pledge that we're looking at is to ask communities, schools, organizations to really support the use of ending the R word, showing that inclusive language for people with intellectual disabilities. A lot of society doesn't recognize how hurtful and discriminating the use of the R word can be, and it can really hurt people who have intellectual disabilities, as well as those of us who love people with intellectual disabilities. Respecting differences is something that really needs to be taught to students at a young age, and so when this was created by those youth, it was really brought into the schools to encourage that knowledge at a young age.
Now, you just mentioned intellectual disabilities. What would be an intellectual disability that, so like because we have some third graders that are watching and like that, just to sort of explain to them what you're talking about.
I'll use the example of Down syndrome.
Okay.
So a person with Down syndrome might have slower processing. They might need some more time to understand different concepts, different ideas, and to communicate differently with people. And sometimes people don't quite understand that. And when the R word became, people were using it to mean things other than what it was initially intended for. They would try and use it as, that's not smart, when really that's not what the word should be used as. It shouldn't be used at all at this point.
Right. Now, is this just a pledge, or are there other things that
There's
happen?
a lot of other things that are happening. As I said, it's with the Special Olympics, so it's through that organization and Best Buddies. Different schools, different organizations run campaigns and pledge drives differently. At my own school, right now we are conducting a pledge that's going to happen on March 2nd. Students are going to be encouraged to pledge online as well as through banners on the school. They're working on creating posters and flyers to send out into the community so that people can just raise awareness about using that inclusive people first language.
So now, how can students or teachers or administrators get involved with this?
Yeah, how do we get our school involved?
Yeah, the best way to do it, as I said, it was created by youth, so it's really something that should be youth-led or strongly encouraged for them to be involved in the creation process. There's different ways to access the website. You can go to golisanofoundation.org, and it'll redirect you to the R word link, which is r-word.org. They have different ideas for ways to organize your own pledge drive, your own campaign, your own events, and really get students involved in creating public service announcements, creating these flyers, and working with community sponsors.
If a student wants to get involved, is it easiest for them to be able to go to the website, or should they actually go to like one of us, a teacher or an adult in the building, to try and get it onto it?
I would always encourage them to first come to an adult, and we can go together. That's what we've done in our school, is we go on together and we take a look at what pieces of that campaign we would like to bring into our own school, and to have that backing of an adult and talk with the administration about how to best work that into your school and your schedule is really helpful. Now,
one thing I want to know is, do you notice that when you get this, when this program rolls out, that kids start using the R word more than you would have it normally? Because I'm thinking in my classroom,
me too.
I don't hear the kids saying it, so here we're going to introduce this term that is what we don't want them to use, and then they might use it just as because.
And yeah, it's a valid concern. what I have noticed is that when I introduced this campaign a couple years ago in my classroom, I asked them if they had heard it because I hadn't heard it in my classroom either.
Right.
And I was surprised. I was like, oh, maybe this is something that
Right.
has gone away. But what I noticed is they all said, well, yeah, but it's on the bus, and it's in the lunchroom, and it's in the hallways, and it's in places that we aren't necessarily right there on top of them. And one of the best things that I've seen lately is my students in particular coming to me after lunch or something like that and saying, oh, Mrs. Wyman, this is what happened in lunch today, and this is what I heard, and this is who stood up and said it was wrong.
Nice.
And it's really it's a really encouraging way to see that what's happening in our classrooms and what's happening through this campaign is really enacting some positive social change.
Sure.
Now, in your school, do you have a large teacher buy-in to this, and that you have a lot of?
Yeah, we do. At the 6th grade level, we teach an entire unit about disabilities. And so our 6th grade English teachers really push this campaign, and I've had a lot of help with the campaign through the other faculty members as well as through our special education PTA.
Cool.
Okay,
Fantastic.
great.
Yeah.
Well, we want to say thank you very much for having
Yeah,
us on.
thank you
and
so
coming
much for
on and
having
visiting
me.
and
Thank
explaining
you.
to us and our
Thank you.
viewers out there.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, we'd like to thank Rachel for being here, and for more information on Spread the Word to End the Word, visit homeworkhotline.org and click on the Move to Include button. Now stay right there. We'll be back in a second.